thank you to our patrons for helping make this podcast possible. Hello, and welcome back to Void FM. I'm your host, the most, Kill Bill the Rapper, and I'm here with my esteemed guest, Rav.
With the lest.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. You're saying the least, like the lest, is crazy.
Because guest with the lest, you know.
He's the guest with the lest. Yeah, how you doing,
Yo,
buddy?
what's going on, man? It's, I'm out here surviving. It's been a minute since we've talked to one another. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm good. I'm running off of minimal sleep, but all is right with the world because in about 2 hours and 46 minutes, I'm going to be playing Elden Ring Night Rain, and I'm going to be, look, I got my controller ready. I got my tuxedo. I got my umbrella. I don't know, all that shit. Yeah, and I'm ready.
Briefcase?
Yeah, I got my briefcase, my tuxedo, my umbrella, my controller. No. Yeah. That's what Dirge is actually about. Is about packing for a trip.
Dude,
a formal wear trip, yeah.
Yesterday, a couple things happened, right? So yesterday at the time of the recording of this episode. So we're recording this a week ahead. Yesterday, for us, our return episode came out. That was exciting. Watching it back was fun as fuck. It was a good episode.
It was.
And I also finally put out my Patreon. I've created a Patreon.
Ooh, yeah.
That's right. And I've put out a bunch of stuff on there, like an outtake and some, screen caps from an upcoming music video. I put out a 40 track beat tape.
That's a lot. It's a lot of tracks.
Yeah. I put out the mood boards for Keep the Change and explaining some of the lore on that. I also explained how I made the cover for Full Bloom, and I have a bunch of other stuff already scheduled ahead of it. So if any of that interests you, please.
Oh, you missed one.
Oh yeah, what was it?
The Phoenix, the cut song.
Yes, Phoenix, an unreleased song by Bill and I that was gonna be on Keep the Change, but we pulled it last second. That's up on there too. So yeah, if any of that interests you, please consider subscribing to your boy on patreon.com/exo_Rav. Or you could go on Patreon and just look up Rav until you find me, hopefully.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, that's that. I feel like a shill promoting myself, but like I'm very happy with all the stuff I get to post on there. I was talking with Bill about this. Like, we have so many things that we've done over the years. I have so many things on my hard drive, like scrapped logos, drafts, doodles, noodles, demos, like
doodles, noodles, and poodles. Oodles and doodles and noodles.
I got oodles of all the doodles and noodles and poodles, and so but I never felt like, oh yeah, I should put this up on YouTube or Twitter or Instagram, because it felt like too self-indulgent, because these are like scraps and unfinished ideas, and I don't want to present them alongside the actual finished stuff, because I'm not trying to conflate the two. Like one is like the vision, the finished vision, and one is not. And so I didn't know where to put that until now. Yeah. And so there you go.
I was gonna say before we segue, I did want to say I actually also have some shilling to do.
Oh shit!
A little bit of shillery. Yeah. So if you guys remember last week's episode where I had to like kind of not talk about anything, I told some stupid story about me smoking weed for the first time. It was because I was talking about this thing that was supposed to be out, but ended up having to be pushed back a week. But we got new song. Oh my God. New song and new music video directed by Rav for Cigarettes 2. Y'all can listen to that watch that video on the EXOCIETY YouTube channel. Oh my God. It's
so good. Such a good song. I'm so excited for it to finally be out so I can like, because I've been stimming this song a lot in my personal life.
Me too.
But like, you smell like dick and sex versions of it and stuff like that. Whatever you sent to me that one time, it unfortunately has been stuck in my head.
Yeah.
But it is a beautiful song. And it was so much fun shooting that video with
sex. You smell like dick and sex. The strong cum.
The long comes is, I think you said.
I like strong cum. I did audible on it, but... Yeah,
and you said, and I can barely throw it down.
I can barely throw it down. Yeah. But no, filming that video was so much fun.
We filmed 2 music videos that day, and they were both kind of impromptu.
Yeah, for sure. I remember we did the one that is not out yet, and I was like, hell yeah, this is so much fun. We did some cool shit. And I really liked like the locations we were at and stuff. It felt like it really matched the song. And then I remember we got back and then we were like, fuck, we got to do another one. And I remember like being like, damn, we got to go all the way to this like round 1 to go do it. It was like late as hell, but nobody was really tired. In there. Yeah, I was so tired. But
there were
fun.
Like 3 couples.
Yeah,
going around it and us, and I was like, I wonder if they think we're a couple. And I'm just filming it. You constantly just walking around with a camera. I'm like, damn, look at him.
This is for like our romantic vlog, like our date vlog content. Yeah, so
it was fire.
There's that. Cigarettes 2 out now, also on the EXOCIETY YouTube if you want to watch the video. And also, holy shit, I did a merch drop. Today.
Oh, it's today. Let's go.
Today. This is me when I did a merch drop today. Anyway, yeah. So I got some really cool shit. This is my first like solo drop ever online that wasn't just music.
Yep, it is.
But yeah, which is pretty crazy. I've got a shirt that was designed by Isbroki, aka Steppy. One of my goats. Love her to death. She absolutely murdered it. It's me like playing video games with Luna from Snow Globe Theory, and like in the game you can see it's like Tina and the Full Metal Kaiju versus Ramona, and I'm losing in the
as Ramona, she's winning.
Yeah. And then also I've got cool little hats that were designed by Detective, which is like I'm very, very happy with how that turned out. But that's my new logo. I have a logo now. This is big.
Let's go.
A gajillion years on this earth, and I've never had a logo, but now I got one. It's cool. Look at it. I'm making Mitch put it here, right there.
Mitch, put it in here. And also, we love you, Mitch. That's another thing we need to talk about. So on the previous episode, we talked about how Mitch left the podcast during our absence from the podcast, and he ended up editing that podcast episode. So you might be thinking to yourself, huh? Well, Mitch came back. Okay, Mitch came back the exact same time as we came back.
I pushed him away.
It's still the same team. It's still the 3 of us. It's still us.
It's still us. No, the lore is that I've created is that I pushed Mitch away because I wouldn't respond to his romantic advances. Yeah. But that's okay. We've reconciled. Yeah. And
how beautiful.
We kiss a lot. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But no, glad to have Mitch back. Oh, there's another thing too. Full Metal Kaiju CDs. I got Full Metal Kaiju represses available now. You can go. This is crazy because I'm talking about it in the future, And we've done this already once, but now I'm doing it again. So it feels kind of like my brain doesn't know how to comprehend it. So there you go. So go exociety.net/store. Just exociety.net. Just go there.
Excited.store.
Yeah, I'm done chilling now. We can be humans.
Well, what I wanted to talk about was, it's so interesting. Like I'm putting out a lot of music this year, and the way I was looking at it as I was categorizing it and organizing it, I'm like, well, this is the serious album I'm working on here, the full album. These joints, they're going to be on the B-sides and rarities volume because they're like, they're kind of like, I'm not finishing them. They're like scraps or songs that I kind of like, but they don't belong anywhere here, or they were like released as singles but don't fit on the album. So I'm doing that because I'm trying to separate like the stuff that is like, this is what I'm putting my name behind, and this is like, here's like my book of doodles, right? So here's my big piece that I drew, and here's my book of doodles. And I'm doing that even with my production side. I have like a couple production albums that I'm working on that I'm proud of, and then this 40-track beat tape I put out. It's not that I'm not proud of it, but it's just like a folder of beats comparatively. Like these are not ones that I ended up finishing or wanting to put out there with like my stamp on it quite the same way. And I was thinking about it and how like ultimately like when you go to like a museum, you'll see doodles. You'll see Dali's and Michelangelo's doodles hanging side by side next to like complete pieces and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Because people are finding them. They're like, oh, this is a Michelangelo. That means it means something to me already because I'm familiar with his work. I'm familiar with all these other things. This is another piece of that bigger puzzle. Yeah. And he probably never would have had the foresight that like one day people would be celebrating his fucking doodles, that people would be hanging his sketches up in a museum, And so
he took a L. He took a L by not having the foresight to post BTS content.
By launching a Patreon. No, but what I'm saying is it's like
Da Vinci's Patreon, dude. Like Michelangelo's Patreon goes crazy, bro.
Yeah, it would be crazy. I just feel like once it was out of his hands and out of his time, like past his time, he lost all that control, obviously, over his art and how it was conducted and perceived and stuff. And ultimately, it made me reflect, like, isn't that the case for all artists, in a sense? Like, when you and I are gone, people might be celebrating B-sides and drop season more sometimes. Certain fans will be celebrating that more than, like, some of our mainline releases and stuff like that. And although there's a part of me that's like, well, like, that's cool. I appreciate that you like it, but I feel like you're missing the point here. You're blah, blah, blah. That's just because, like, I have a different relationship with it, Yeah. And I think people don't just have a relationship with art. They have a relationship with artists as well. And so I think I don't think about that the same quiet way. And so I guess this is not even a cogent thought in any way. I'm just thinking out loud. It's made me reflect recently. I've reflected about these kinds of things, and it made me realize that, like, it's so funny that I'm spending so much time categorizing this and all like that, when the reality is probably, like, when we die, people will be posting your tweets, your book about Bill side by side, like, oh, he once put out this little beat, or he did this, which then later on, blah, blah, blah. I guess what I'm saying is, like, we work so hard on trying to give people just the best and the most perfect thing. When we die, they're going to take everything they can.
Well, yeah, of course.
And that's not a bad thing. It's just like, for sure. So funny.
I feel like I've like hit this thing that you're talking about like years ago. Like, I feel like this, like, there was definitely times where, because there's like different types of people. Everyone has different like opinions on whatever. And like, there's people, like, I remember being like, oh man, like, I like drop season because it felt like this personal thing of just like shit you were doing at the time, and here it is. And like, I think there's like definitely a subset of people that feel that way about B-sides. I remember hearing that like early on, being like, oh yeah, I love his B-sides even more sometimes than like the mainline stuff, which I think is just like, there is a part of it that's like, oh, these are like, there is like a
There's
personal...
They're different. There's more rawness to it. Also, like a lot of it is experimental. A lot of the B-side stuff just naturally becomes experimental. Is because I like to experiment, and sometimes when I feel like I don't quite stick the landing or I don't know how to finish it, that's how it ends up on the B-sides. But then I take the things I learned from my B-sides, like the techniques I work on developing and practicing with. They inform a lot of how I then go and make my finished actual works. I guess the way I see it is like the B-sides is like, this is what I'm doing while I'm trying to work on the proper product for you. The piece that I think really speaks to my qualitative expectations and I don't know, like all the things that make it like a full finished album to me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think that, at the end of the day, it's even now, like what you're describing is like when we die or whatever, even now, like we have little control other than how it's presented to people, right? We have very little control in like how people digest art. Like there's people out there that'll have an opinion that like you'll just be like, oh, this is wrong or whatever. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, I mean, that's how they feel. So that's like, you know, I think there is an aspect of it where it's like you can categorize things. And I think a lot of people enjoy that categorization. Like people like, you know, oh, this is behind the scenes. This is B-sides. This is whatever, you know, but like at the end of the day, there's still going to be joints that like, oh man, I love this song. I wish it was on Spotify, or, oh, I love this song. I wish, you know, like more people knew about this or whatever, you know, and it's to you, it could just be some bullshit that you just did. And you're like, oh man, you know, it's not.
And that's the thing. Not
serious.
Everything that's B-sides is bullshit to me. It's just like, that's the thing. It's like, not that I hate all of that stuff. It's just like, I didn't feel like it was either finished or I didn't feel like it belonged on any other project, and I still just wanted to put it somewhere.
For sure. Yeah.
So, but I'm excited. I have so much stuff I'm working on, and I think the blockage I've been having currently is I just haven't been recording lately. I've been writing and I've been producing, but I haven't been recording. I don't know why it is that I'm kind of like been taking a little break from that, but I think I'm probably just going to try to knock out a bunch of songs back to back once I do feel like recording.
Yeah.
I think maybe a part of it is because I've been rewriting a lot. I've been going back, like McKinley sent me a song, for instance. Shout out to McKinley Dixon, phenomenal artist. And he sent me a song like a couple months ago. And I've written my verse like multiple times and deleted it from scratch. And then recently what I did is I deleted like the second half. And then like, I'm like, all right, I'm going to rewrite it. I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to rewrite that. I think I'm like in my own, I'm in the chapter of my life where I'm like, and I think you'll know what I mean by this. Like, you know those eras in your life where you're like, you feel yourself like, oh, I'm about to level up. I'm in the middle of leveling up. And you're trying to fine tune things before like, it's like, and that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like my writing is leveling up. I felt like my writing leveled up. Obviously, between like Beneath the Toxic Jungle and I'm On to Me, I think a lot of people who really
like
care about specifically the lyrics, they could see that their writing vastly improved, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm undergoing something like that again right now, where I think it's a huge step up, but it's a lot of it is the way what I'm trying to do, or not even trying to do, the way I'm writing these days, the way like I'm naturally gravitating towards writing these days is a bit different, and I can feel it, and I'm not fighting it. I'm just trying to perfect it as best as I can before I feel like, okay, yeah, this is good. I can now start recording these verses. Like I can now finally present it to people. Like, I don't know. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I think I'm kind of going through a similar thing a little bit. Like one thing that I've been doing lately, I'm not really changing the way I write or like how I look at it. But one thing I've been doing that I think has been paying off for me is sometimes I'll do this thing where I'll write a verse and then there's certain moments which are like, I don't want to say filler, but it's like designed to be like not super interesting, but it's like a gateway from like point A to point B.
Connecting thoughts, segues, stylistic segues.
Yeah. So like point A is interesting. Then there's kind of this little thing that like leads up to another interesting thing, but it isn't necessarily like saying anything super crazy, or just in my head, the way I look at it. Some might look at it differently, you know, but one thing I've been doing is making it a point to not have those moments, for it all to be A, B, C, D, every point try to be something that I find interesting in some way, whether it's like how it's written, whether it's how it sounds, like some kind of merit to it, and kind of trimming the fat of like stuff that feels like okay, cool, here's a punchline, or here's like a poignant thought that I really like, and then there's like kind of this little bit here that like could be like better or whatever. I just like, if it feels weird to me, I will like stop now, instead of I think before I really leaned into this like, okay, cool, like stream of consciousness, it has to like, whatever comes out is like what's meant to be. I've kind of taken that process and then put like the brakes on when I find a moment where I'm like, okay, this just doesn't feel right all the way. Yeah. And I've noticed that my verses feel more cohesive lately to me. Like it feels like, okay, this feels like interesting all the way through, and there's not a moment where I'm like, okay, this is like kind of cool, but like, you know, whatever. I've been really trying to just cut down on stuff that could be considered like mid or just like there, you know. And
I think I totally get that, because I think for me it's also been a similar thing, and I don't know what you would attribute it to in your personal life, but for me, I've been listening to I've you know me, I've always been a fan of Ka and Billy Woods and all that, but lately I've been revisiting a lot of it. And also R.I.P. Ka, with Ka passing last year, like
that was right at the start of our tour,
first day of the
tour. We were in New York
Brooklyn
when we saw it.
I was in Brooklyn when I arrived in Brooklyn. When I heard the news, I was talking to Ant and Rhyme Sayers about Ka like the week prior, you know. I'm like, y'all should like maybe reach out and see if you could like do merch stuff for him, because he was just expressing around that time that he was taking a step back from doing merch on outside of just when he tours.
Oh yeah, I remember this. Yeah.
So I saw that, and I knew that Rhyme Sayers were like starting to work with Billy Woods. They were working with Billy Woods. And I was like, well, this makes sense. This is like, Ka really makes sense here. And just kind of feeling excited, you know, like about the idea of like having Ka, Billy Woods, and like A$AP Rock under the same umbrella. Just that thought as a hip hop nerd. Yeah. Felt great. But also like, you know, I'm a huge fan of Ka, and like I want to support fellow artists any way I can. And anyway, sorry, that's I'm rambling. I've been revisiting a lot of Ka, and Billy Woods just put out a new album, and I love when I listen to their songs and not a bar is a filler. Not a singular bar. Every bar says something or delivers something, and I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that's how it has to be, you know? I'm just saying, like, it's so potent, and not just like, oh, wow, that's a cool rhyme scheme. They can do that, sure. Yeah. But it's specifically that, holy fuck, they say something that shakes me to my core. I think I recognize a lot of how, like, over the years, I've personally, one of the things I think I've honed in my career is my ability to concisely say something that like is very earnest and resonates with people. And I feel like Billy Woods and Ka are that to the nth degree, you know?
Yeah. It's like the masters. Like if you're looking at like this, like it's a fucking, like a martial art, like they're like tippy
They're
top,
the top.
like black belt, 20,000 stripes.
Yeah, when you hit the top of the mountains, you see on one top of the mountain, you see Billy Woods. On the other, you see Ka, and you're like, wow, look at them. There they are. They belong there.
Yeah.
And it made me, I think, because I listened to it a lot. I'm always been a little bit critical of a lot of other people's music too. When I listen to it, I'm like, what does this mean? What does that mean? I'm kind of an asshole sometimes. And I'm definitely super an asshole with my own shit. And so I've been like writing stuff and then reading it back. And then I'm like, what is this whole part? And like almost analyzing it from like a standpoint, like, I think I just got lost in the scheme here. Or like, I thought this specific thing was cool. And so I wrote this whole thing around it. But it does not make the song better. This is not a worthwhile little segue into this thing before I go back. This is unnecessary. I'm going to trim the fat. I'm like, and as you were saying, if I find filler bars, just being like, okay, I could leave it here, but I could also, instead of making it a filler bar, making it a functional connecting part that also is saying something. That is also conveying like a point further. I'm trying to distill my music into more like just everything super deliberate. I want every word to very much have to be clear that there's a lot of thought put into this, you know? I don't know. I'm also in the midst of it all right now, so it is hard to put it into words because I'm not applying hindsight. I'm applying just current sight, and there is a fog all around me that I'll only be able to sort of see through in hindsight later on. Once I like get further in my career, I'll look back at this moment and be able to maybe like describe it more accurately. But I'm very excited. I'm in a very exciting place for me as a rapper. I've been listening to more battle raps lately as well. You know, I've always been a fan of battle rap, but I've been revisiting that. There's things that I'm recognizing as time goes on that I'm like respecting and caring for less and less and more and more. And I'm just trying to hone in on that because I'm trying to be the best version of what I think is possible. And I know I'm so far. It's so far out of reach what like Ka and Billy Woods are to me from my perspective that it excites me that like that means like there's so much I can still do. There's still so much to
just keep pushing and pushing and honing and honing until it gets to a point. Like one thing that because I've really been analyzing how I write a lot lately. Like there is like, it's kind of weird that we're both in this like kind of not transitional period, but this thing of like, oh, okay, like trying to kind of in this in between, trying to like elevate it and take it to a new height. And like one thing that I've analyzed with a lot of the stuff that like connected for me over the years, but also like connected with other people is I used to do this thing a lot more often where I would write stuff that only I would understand. Yeah. And for whatever reason, a lot of that stuff like connects with people. And so I've started trying to do that more often because I've felt like over the years, I've tried to not do that because I was like, well, I'm getting like a wider audience and I want people to like understand what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there was a part because there's a skill set in that, right? There's like a skill set in like, yes, I said this in a way that resonated and people heard it and went like, okay, cool. I get this, you know? And I noticed one of the things that I've returned to a lot more lately is trying, because I used to do it like Ramona era. I did it all the time, like constantly, where it would just be stuff that only kind of makes sense to me, or it'd be like loose association in my brain and it makes sense to me. But like if you ask me to explain it, I'd be like, oh, it's more like just a feeling. I don't know how to explain that bar to you, you know? I'm trying to do that, but I can't explain it. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of like earlier career Aesop Rock was kind of like that too, where I think back in the 2000s, somebody was like interviewing him and kind of asking him like, what do you think about people saying that you're just like, your music is absurd, that like you don't say anything, you know? And he's like, that's crazy. Like, he's like, it would take such a talent for me to be rapping and saying all of this stuff for it to like, to be saying nothing, you know? To mean nothing.
For sure.
And he said, he followed it up with like, I just say things referencing and explaining things in a way that makes sense to me, and that a reference like a reference point that exists within my life that sometimes is so intimate I don't think anyone else will understand, but it makes sense to me and some people around me. And but he's like, but it's definitely not nonsensical. Just because you can't penetrate that doesn't make it nonsensical. It doesn't mean that it's like it was meant to be penetrated necessarily, or not meant to be penetrated, whatever, right? That's besides the point. It's just how it is. And I feel like that is a lot of your art and why I love your art. And also, like, I have, of course, a very different relationship. It's something that I've recently reflected on. I like you very differently to how most people like you. You know, I like you. You're one of the best rappers to me because I actually know you. And so I do understand a lot of what you say in
I would think probably like 95% of the things that I would
and
say.
so to me, I'm like, oh, this is so intimate. This is so well put and so wholesome oftentimes, just because I know what the references are that you're pulling on and the events you're pulling on. And so it made me kind of think about what Ace said then. And I'm like, that is amazing. And like, the thing is, I never listened to Ace from that era thinking like I'm missing out on something. I clearly am. I definitely am on a lot of stuff. But the stuff that I was able to pull away from it meant so much of enough for me that it's besides the point. So I think you are best left to your devices. And if you choose to pursue that intimate, intricate, poetic stuff that might not make sense to everyone, I don't think you need to worry about it, because people will have consistently pulled stuff away from your music because of the earnestness and the zeal, I think, within which you communicate a lot of your thoughts. And so don't worry too much. Just trust your gut.
Yeah. It's not as much. First of all, that means a lot. Thank you so much that you said all these nice things. But it's less that I'm like worried about it, and more that I just feel like I'm naturally going in a direction, but I feel like it's more of a cognizant, like, oh, I'm making the choice to not care if people don't get it as much. And I think there's a part of me that, like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll write something that is intimate and I know what it means to me.
Yeah.
And I know, like, I wish that the ultimate, like, you're always chasing this dragon of like, I want someone to feel the same way that I felt when I wrote this. And that is like ultimate goal is like, oh man, this was really emotional for me, and I wish you could feel it in some kind of way.
Interesting.
And you'll never fully hit that, like, for a lot of things, right? It's like that's your highest bar. And I've been kind of happy with getting a 7 out of 10 out of that 10 out of 10. You know what I mean? But I think now that I'm like making the choice to not care about it as much and focus more on like what I like and sonically what I like, what I just think sounds good, and not care as much about how it's perceived, I think that maybe the art will be better as well.
For sure.
You know?
I know it will be, because it will be a more distilled version of you, and me knowing you and how able you are. I have no doubt that can only lead to good outcomes. I think, you know, with what we do, you know, like for you kind of want to distill it to the most purest form of like how you feel so that someone else can feel it. I think the only difference I would say with my art is that I'm not trying to convey that. At least I'm not actively trying to convey that. I'm trying to experience it. I'm already experiencing it, but I'm trying to experience it in a way where I'm exorcising that. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of the times, and it can be both negative and happy feelings. Like it could be a negative feeling, whether it's sad or anger. Sadness or anger. Music is like my therapy in the sense like especially with rap, you get to vent all those frustrations. You get to remove them out of your head, and you get to also combine that with artistry and musicality and all of these things. So I try to max out on all the catharsis points for myself. Like, this needs to be the most like cathartic version of whatever that may be. And that can also sometimes just be like a chill, cool vibe in the moment. I'm just trying to capture the most honest version of that, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, but the catharsis is what I chase. And because I feel like I trust myself that if I can achieve that, then that song will make people feel similar, or feel
for sure.
Because it will be so viscerally, like, it'll be so packed with, there'll be no dilution of anything but that feeling, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that, like, over the years, that's been like your bread and butter, like how you write, how you do this thing where you will zone in on like it could be like a very small interaction and make them like a micro macro, you know what I mean? There's like a thing that you've done, the way that we, like, for example, like with Keep the Change, like a lot of those songs, how I write normally, I don't think about what's this song going to be. I just start writing and then it comes out. But then, like, the way that we approached it with you, like, you would be like, what are we writing about? Like, what does this feel like? Like, and I think that, like, you have been very good at both, like, poignantly, like, wording things that, like, okay, this makes sense. I know what he's saying here, and I'm taking a complex topic and breaking it down. But also, a lot of your most popular songs, I think, are expelling that negative energy. And even if it's something like, you know, like a song like B, for example, right? Which I think is like a pretty personal and like, you know, I'm sure that there's a lot of people who can relate to that with the whatever in their life, right? But it's a very like personal to you thing. But when we do those shows and then you say those lyrics, it's just people, it resonates with people in a way that's like, oh shit, like, yeah, for sure. I've seen it. It's like that's my favorite part of your set every time, because it's like this, everybody just has this singular, like, everybody's on the same wavelength when that song comes on. You know, and that's like a really hard thing to do as a writer, you know, and
appreciate that. Actually, this segues to another thing I've been thinking about. Next time I go on tour, I want to do a set that incorporates more really those quieter, intimate, more sad songs, and I'm trying to find the right balance. On the first tour we went, I tried to have a bit of a balance, and later on, and then the latest tour we did, we kind of had a lot of explosive energy. We try to go for just like high energy, a couple like slower songs here and there, but for the most part, it was like really, you know, hype. And next time I go on tour, I'm gonna continue trying to work on striking that balance. By this time around, again, leaning more into like forcing myself to do some of the slower songs and the more personal songs. It can be tough, man. It can be tough when you're like up on stage, and you know me, I don't really get stage fright. I feel like I don't feel like most things get to me in general, but in the moments where I'm up on stage and I'm delivering a song that's pretty personal and the beat drops out or whatever, or the drums drop out, and it's just like, and you look around and you have hundreds of people just standing looking at you, I need to find a way to keep myself in the moment and not snap out of it. Like, because with B, I can do it. With B, I focus so much, and people during the verses will oftentimes just stand and look at me or mouth it along with me. And in those moments when I'm up on stage doing that song, what I try to do is just like, I forfeit myself. I go back to the Rav that wrote that song. You know, I'm experiencing the high of that, like, release again, and I can do it. But with a lot of other songs that are wordy and slower, I get self-conscious, and it takes me out of the experience of being a performer, a good performer, because I'm hyper fixating on being a performer in that moment, and I just don't know how to break out of it. But I need to force myself to keep trying rather than running away from it, because I do think it's something worthwhile working on for me.
For sure. I think you're definitely onto something. I think that there's always like room for improvement. I think the one thing that actually kind of actively stresses me out about like that idea to me is like a lot of my songs I like to do. Okay, so like there's a brand of song that I like to do that doesn't sound like the version on the studio, where I do everything kind of like an octave higher and I'm like louder and like that's kind of just like how I perform. I want to like be like high energy, and that's like how I do that, right?
Yeah.
And there's like, for example, like if I were to do a song like Black Coffee, right? Like, which I've never done Black Coffee because it has a long ass hook and I don't want to be standing there awkwardly. But like, let's say I did. Let's say I put a little, well, hey guys, we're just going to chill out for a minute. I put a fucking stool down and I just have my little Black Coffee moment, right? It's hard for me to break out of that. Like I'm rapping in front of people and I'm like, yeah, fucking we're killing this shit. Like that. And like, okay, cool, I'm gonna take it an octave lower and then just like be super intimate with you guys. That's very like it feels like I have to have one or the other.
But it can't be both. Again, I always hark back to like caveman, early village days around the fire. There needs to be moments for when we gather and like the shaman's telling a story, a cautionary tale, or where we're honoring a fellow villager that recently passed away and what they meant. But also in the same night, knowing how to celebrate and knowing how to expel that rage and sadness, also like in balancing all of those things. And when we're going from town to town across America, it's multiple villages. And every one of these villages that we come across, someone has died. Someone has experienced something awful. I have had too many fans over the last year that have reached out to us that are like, hey, me and my friend went to your show this year or like a couple years ago, blah, blah, blah. And he killed himself or he passed away recently. And I just wanted to say, like, listening to your song put me back into this kind of place, that kind of place. And it reminded me of the fragility of like, not just fragility of life, but just like how it's, how we, when we tour and stuff like that, we're existing in front of so many different people with so many different lives, with so many different things happening. It's so
like
easy.
Everyone's got a story, yeah.
It's so easy for us to just look at them almost as like, no disrespect, as NPCs, because like there's like 10,000 plus people after you see them. It's like hard to categorize each individual as an individual, but we nevertheless must remind ourselves that these are collections of individuals who are going through shit the same way that you and I are going through, some less, some even more. And so like these opportunities, these shows are opportunities for them to have that night with the shaman, to expel their sadness, you know, to channel their anger, but to channel their happiness too, to remember the good stuff, like the reason why they were happy once and they could be happy again. And you know, and at the end of the day, a show is just a show. But to me, I look at it from these kinds of perspectives where this is an opportunity for people to have a almost like religious experience or like a very spiritual experience, a healing experience. And I want to become the best healer that I can be.
Yeah,
you know?
That's super valid. I think one thing that I think I'm going to start doing is, one of the things I always do in between is like, I'll be like, all right, you guys ready for the next one type shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like tongue in cheek a lot of times. But like, I think that what I'm going to do is like dedicate a certain time in my sets to be like, all right, well, I'm getting intimate now. So now's time to get everybody put on your listening cap or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but but you know, like that's the art also comes from like knowing how to do it where, yeah, it is on brand for you, but also it is not too abrupt either, where it's not like forced. We're like, hey, okay, time to get really sad now, guys. Because
that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say, like, okay, guys, you ready to cry real quick? Yeah.
Like, because that's kind of what I've been doing for a lot of my shows, where I'm like, y'all ready to get depressed real quick? Or like, you know, I'm like trying to take the edge off of what's coming, and I think that is an insecurity that comes from an insecurity, rather than I think it's something that comes from an insecurity that is masked as a deliberate artistic choice. Do you feel me on that?
Man, this is kind of interesting that we're talking about this, because I recently went to a show. It was a good show. I went with somebody to see Gigi Perez, like a pop, or kind of not pop, like a indie folk singer, right? Singer-songwriter type. She has some pretty sad music, but really good show. I enjoyed it. Good show. However, I noticed something is like, for the most part throughout her entire set, she didn't talk in between songs. It would just be like, bah, 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 bah. And then it would just like be quiet and the crowd would go crazy. And then she'd just start singing again. And I was like, damn, like that's like weirdly ballsy to do that. Like just to keep going without saying anything at all. And then I like realized, I was like, if people were eating it up, like they were like, her stage presence was really good, you know, throughout. But like up until the end where she did start yapping more and kind of a traditional sense of that way, you know. Well, I don't mean to say it was actually super. She was talking about a very heavy topic, but like, you know,
I know
I'm just being silly. But it was weird to me because like that's such a foreign idea to me. That's almost like terrifying, just coming up and doing a song and then not saying anything and then just doing another song. That's something about that's deeply scary to me. Why is that?
Yeah, I think it's because it is more intimate in many ways to do something like that. It also like draws more attention to you, but it's cool. You get a lot of control if you do that. You kind of have you can control silence in certain ways potentially. You know, again, it depends on how well you handle it and who the audience is. Like clearly, she knows her audience, or maybe that just also works for any audience. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, you know, there's definitely many different types of techniques that will work for different people. I'm just trying to find one, I guess, that feels most honest to me, that doesn't come from isn't like a masking. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do think a lot of my, I'm joke a lot on stage, and I think that's fine. I find that works for me a lot. It's just how I am in general. You know me, I joke about shit a lot in general. So
you're a real jokester, a real card.
Yeah, and so that's always going to be present in my shit. But I also know that in my personal life, I do, like, although I joke around a lot, I also know how to get serious. You know what I'm saying? And like, in fact, I'm a pretty dramatic person. I get serious a lot. And so I just want to find a way to incorporate that into my stage presence without like forcing it in there, but just not obscuring it. Finding a way for it to exist there. And I think way of doing it is to stop obscuring it deliberately. And I have been trying to deliberately obscure it until now. And one way of doing it is just like putting a few more sad songs. So it's not like, so I can't give myself that joke excuse too many times. Like if I have 4 sad songs instead of 1 or 2, I'm going to run out of excuses. So I'm going to have to find a way to weave that, you know, cause it's writing, you have to ride the vibe of the room.
I like this reality, and where you do a song and then you go, okay, you guys ready for a sad one? And then you do that song and then you do another sad one right after. And then you go like, you guys ready for a sadder one? And they're like, yeah. And then like by the end of your set, you're like, you guys ready to fucking kill yourselves?
Okay, that's good. That's actually pretty good. That is pretty good. I will consider trying that out.
Just walk your audience through the abyss. You know what I mean?
But kind of, right? It's going to one of my concerts. I wanted to feel like you're bungee jumping into a ravine of the abyss, where I'm like, hey, don't worry, you're not gonna actually fall in there. Like you're safe with me, right? I'm just gonna bring you as close to it as possible. I want to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
because I
if
think that would
anyone's
heal.
equipped,
I think that could be very healing of an experience.
for sure. I mean, I think a lot. That's why people listen to sad music, man. Like, I think there's a type. For me, like a lot of times, that's what gets me through. Is like, oh, okay, shit. Like, I'll hear something and I'll be like, damn, like this resonates with me, and it, even if it's like very sad, it does heal. It feels like, oh shit, like I can get that out. I can have like that catharsis, even if it's like a small one, because I heard this song and it really like resonated with me. And then now it's like exposure therapy a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, have your show be depression exposure therapy, you know?
Yeah. I had an intrusive freestyle thought, sorry.
Go ahead.
Ramona made everybody a Mona resonate, but it didn't really resonate.
That's good.
You talking about like your records back to back, like hindsight, like Eminem did that one time, like,
oh yeah,
when last record was or whatever.
The last thing I ever want to do is make a thing where I like run down like public perception on like every single one of my records. Like, dude, if you catch me doing that, I want you to like just tase me and like commit me or something. You know what I mean? If I'm like, yeah, they didn't really fuck with drop season, but that's because I got dropped from the season. Like, you know, like if I do that, it's over. It's done.
Well, like, you know, where you mentioned like the last few arcs, they were not about the Dragon Balls or whatever. I guess is the closest you'll ever get, you know, to kind of
exactly.
Your way.
It's such a dumbass bar, dude. This is like one of the stupidest bars I've ever done.
No,
oh
dude,
my god,
you're capable of dumber.
It's probably true.
Cut that out.
No, you can leave it. It's fine. It's fine. My bones are the highest lasting.
I have so many stupid bars that I am too insecure to ever look back on them.
Uh-huh.
You have like a good.
No, I've got some pretty bad ones. I've got some pretty terrible bars over the years.
No, man.
I
don't know. I have a lot. We definitely got to one day just like go through our favorite examples of our look it up and bring it up.
Wait. I got you. Oh my god, is it not?
I think you need to consider just I've got to a point where like if Bill is comparing himself to someone in a song, then that person is we're gonna find out something awful about them like shortly afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. It's like yeah.
So there is that
Diddy
curse.
one's
So
rough.
please don't ever compare yourself to me.
Yeah. Oh, boy, I feel like Rav. And then
Well,
you're just like, oh no, I have to kill someone now. No, I have to kill my wife. Like I have to fucking like. No, that's sorry, dude. I'm gonna have to do it. I'm gonna have to curse you.
Okay.
Yeah. I was gonna say one, but I couldn't find it in my phone. But I did a whole scheme that was all like cheese references back in like 2010.
Ooh. Oh.
It was like kind of tongue in cheek at the time, but it was like, if it's about that cheddar, how dare he speak cheesy? Something, this cheese easy. Yeah. It was, you know. So like there you go. I gotta find the
Rest
clip.
in peace,
I gotta find it.
You know, shouts Billy Woods.
How dare he speak cheesy?
Is this your URL / don't flop second in the dot
like
moment?
a joke. It was a joke, but I remember showing it to someone and then being like, damn, this is kind of hard.
Dude, that's my favorite. When normies point out what their favorite bars are, or they're like, yo, that was a cool double entendre, triple entendre that you did. Also, I don't say normies in like a pejorative way. I just mean like
civilians.
Most of my people that I know that aren't like rappers, you know, is all I mean.
No, you got to do the Burt Kreischer, like the when I say normies, I mean civilians.
Yeah, civilians. So when I speak to civilians about it, it's always so fun because they're like, be really impressed by a lot of stuff that I'm like, and or they'll be curious about why I'm critical about certain artists. They'll be like, oh, well, she's a really good writer, for instance, and I'll be like, she's okay, like she's good, but she's not up there in terms of writing. And they'll be like, what do you know? Well, what do you know? And it's like, obviously all of this shit is subjective, right?
100%.
So it's like, conversation doesn't even need to be had. But there is, like, because we do this full time, and the kind of rap that we do brings a lot of our attention to lyrics and stuff, we get to hear so much of it. So as well. And oftentimes when I feel something like about something, it's because I feel like I've heard it already in other variations, in other forms. I'm not being moved by it. And it doesn't mean it's bad or it doesn't have any technical skill. It's kind of like when I hear somebody sing outside of a restaurant and I'm like, yo, they're killing it. Or I can be like, they're rushing. They're always just like a quarter second ahead of each first bar or whatever. I can notice these things just because, like, I've paid attention to long enough, and so, like, my observations will differ. But I don't know. But I do think it's fair for me to be like, hey, this double entendre that you heard on a popular record that you think is really dope is not that good. Come on. Like, do you know what I'm saying? There's got to be, like, I understand music is subjective, but jokes, even though comedy is subjective too, there is, like, good comedy, and then there's, like, comedy that doesn't stick the landing. And so for me, rap goes beyond, or just not just rap, writing, in music, whether it's pop music or any other genre of music. It's like, when you're talking about writing in music, you're not just discussing the musical world and that subjective world. You're also talking about, like, other things that, like, have their own metrics and are also subjective in their own right. But there's a reason why certain stuff becomes revered by certain kinds of people in certain circles, the way that it does, and others does not. And, like, I think maybe people like me are not necessarily equipped with the right vocabulary to, like, express what all of that is, but I do think that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that it isn't just, like, you can't tell me that, like, it's subjective whether the metaphors or punchlines of this rapper on this song are better than the ones on this one or not. Like,
I mean, I think that it is subjective in the sense that, like, there's, like, certain things that I look for that, like, certain people wouldn't give a fuck about. But like, it's also, like, one of those things where it's like, okay, like, if you were to, like, take that out of it, right? For example, like, someone first getting into, like, metal for the first time might not be aware of some of the tropes or things that have been done before or whatever, right? And so, like, sometimes I've caught myself in situations where, like, man, I really like this band or this album, and then they'll be like, you like that album? You know what I mean? And I'll be like,
Sunbather's a classic one where, like, you get two reactions. You get either, like, oh my god, you know ball, or you get the, like, of course.
Yeah. Oh, you like this one popular record that, like, most people who don't know this thing like, you know what I mean? And I think, like, I try to, like, not be that.
What are the hip hop versions of that?
I mean, I think that there's, like, tons of them. It's like, I think, like
Logic, or like Eminem in a way. No disrespect to Eminem.
Well, I think that, like, with Eminem, it's like what he dove into, and his, like, perception, like, when he, like, was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna rap about being good at rapping, or focus only on, like, technical aspects of certain stuff, and that was, like, that's just his thing. And in a vacuum, there's no problem. I have no problem with that if you just want to make that. But it sucks because you get these people who don't really listen to a lot of hip hop, and then they'll, like, hear, like, Rap God and be like, this is legitimately super impressive. And I'll be like, yes, there's aspects of that is impressive. I just don't want that shit on my fucking speakers. You know what I mean?
Just
like,
kind of is ass. No disrespect. Again, it's just like, there's like that. Also, like
said with love, Marshall.
Nothing-
I know you're a fan of the show, so
but also
you
nothing
know.
on that is said is really that impressive. Like the thing that people are finding impressive is like the magic trick aspect of it, right? The like when it starts spitting really fast, and it's just like it's a party trick. I'm sorry, it's a that's you're being wowed and telling us like, look, he made his thumb disappear. How do you explain that?
Yeah, but it's like it's weird though because like there's other versions of that exist that I love. Like for example, like Bone Thugs and Harmony. Although they're not doing anything super crazy like that, right? They are for the time, like them and like Twista and stuff like that. Like people
they
weren't
pioneered
really
the style.
Yeah,
also, the fact that they
people
harmonized it was crazy.
For sure, and the idea that like. A lot of people you'd hear like Busy Bone like rapping super fast while also being like doing melodies and like cool triplets that people weren't really doing super actively, at least in the mainstream. Like, you know, Memphis was on that, but you know what I mean? Like they were kind of doing some cool shit, right? And a lot of that stuff aged very well for me. And I'm like, oh, it sounds good to me. So that's why I like it. But is like a subset of people that like Twista, not because it sounds cool, but because like, oh, listen, it's like a skill. And it's like, he's very good at doing this thing that I think is impossible to do. Yeah. And, or could be impossible for this person. Like they're like, oh, this is like just so outside the realm.
To me, it reminds me of the like, white boy spits rap really fast early YouTube days, you know?
Yeah,
where
exactly.
Like, I can even hear that beat or whatever it was.
Yeah, that's fucking it's like how. Well, you know what? I actually, man, I want to do this one day, and I'm not talking smack about this guy because I think he's like cool and he makes good music, but like that's how I learned about like Watsky.
I knew you were gonna say Watsky.
Yeah, and like it's so weird because it's so unlike the rest of his everything, and a lot of people are like, yeah, Pale Kid rap fast, yeah, Watsky, you know, and I'm like, he does like a lot of like stuff that's completely like not even sort of like that, you know, and
wasn't Mac Lethal kind of similar too?
Yeah, for sure,
and he
for
was
sure.
Like a Scribble Jam.
I feel like that's the one thing I would love to sit down and talk with. If I ever get a chance to talk to Watsky, I want to ask him like, yo, like, was that as annoying of a process of like gaining a fan base that wants this one thing or whatever? I know that he was like successful and he did stuff that was like not that, you know what I mean? But like, it's gotta be at his shows, like a certain number of people that are like, yeah, I remember the Pale Kid who raps fast. You know what I mean? Like,
I think probably feel like, most of his fans nowadays are people who, from that era, who hopped on, that stuck around because what they saw beyond that, the music, the other stuff that he was doing resonated with him. And he's probably been able to like, you know, navigate a successful career of music by, you know, continuing to make music that makes sense for him and that fan base, probably. For
sure. But then there is it's like a genre of like, particularly like there's a lot of white dudes that do this, but like you see them on like, I'm not like trying to like, if you make art and it feels good to make, I'm not trying to tell you to not do that. Like, don't be like, even if it's not for me, if you want to be like, rap fast, whatever, fucking go crazy, right? But there is like a connotation with it where I see people and it's like, I'll see them on like Instagram reels all the time, for only reels, never TikTok, never YouTube shorts, is always on reels. I don't know why. And like, I always feel like bad because I'm like, this isn't a pipeline that leads to like happiness.
It's look, if you are a visual artist, if you're an illustrator, right? The equivalent for you would be photographic detail artists. People who are like able to draw with like photographic accuracy, you know? It will impress normies. And I know a lot of people in my life who are impressed by that kind of stuff. Again, it's not normie in a pejorative way. I'm just saying like it is. It has that
Joe.
initial of like, it has that initial like, oh shit, this is like, this takes a skill that feels so out of reach for me. And it's like it is a parameter that I can understand. It is a parameter of accuracy. that I know I could not do. And with like rapping really fast, it's like the parameter of like being able to say words like that so quickly together back to back. I don't think I could do that. And it's like, I think because people can understand those parameters and like, or capacities, they're able, they're, it shouldn't be confusing or surprising when they draw on those qualities for reference when they look at stuff, you know? And they're like, they say who's the best at this or that, you know? When the truth is, people who have like the really, really accurate portraits and things like that, people who are like kind of perfect, they don't get successful careers from that. That doesn't lead to successful careers because it's not beyond how impressive it might be from a technical standpoint on that one level. It just has nothing. If it has nothing else, right, then it won't go nowhere. Yeah. It's like it's just like a party trick. That's all I'm saying. And so to me, it's like I get that the subject matter is all of these things when we talk about art are subjective, but there are elements nevertheless, I think, where we can engage in like a specific sub conversations and actually draw on like examples and things that are like better. You know, like I could say like, oh, this punchline rapper, it does better in like his intended purpose with punchline rapping and all that, and maybe being a full well-rounded rapper than this punchline rapper or whatever on certain things. And like specifically we could just talk about the writing, you know, but that doesn't mean that the person with inferior writing isn't a better rapper, because maybe the person with inferior technical ability in that one particular thing has a better voice, better breath control, better beat selection, better hook writing. All of these other things are also like things that make you more a complete artist. And what people come to prefer between those parameters is where a lot of the subjectivity lies, because a lot of it is up to like taste. But if we're going to talk about like writing, I do think there's still like, there's probably levels to it, but there's at least one level where it's like, this is not that, like I can point to better stuff. Like there's stuff that is so bad that it's kind of good, that it's genius in its own way. We see that with movies, obviously. Like a movie like The Room has replay value. And then there's movies that are so fucking bad, you'd give them really, really low scores, but you wouldn't watch them again because they don't have that.
Well, there's like an entertainment.
Yeah.
Like I think the absolute worst thing you can be in anything is just boring. Like mediocre sucks, but you know what I mean? But like being bad and like so bad that it's hilarious, or having a style. Like sometimes there's stuff that like I remember like growing up and thinking like, oh, this is like dumb. But then like as I've gotten older, I'm like, oh man, like but like the style is so good that it makes up for all these other things.
Like if something can make up for things, then that changes the equation 100%. And then sometimes it just doesn't. Like sometimes it just doesn't.
I think part of it though is like just the natural progression, especially people who write. Right? Like when I first got into rapping, I was so impressed by people who rap fast, people who had like very crazy rhyme schemes, people who, not to say that either of those things can't be good, but like I think that was what I focused on mostly, was like rhyming and very like a lot of the stuff that I thought was good, it was trying to be good. Like that's the main focus of it, is like, listen how good this is. Aren't I good at this thing? Like that's kind of how it felt with a lot of the stuff that I gravitated towards when I first started getting into rapping. And then like, as I remember, like a big part of it is like watching like old rap battles where I would be rooting for this guy and be like, yeah, isn't this guy like so much better than the other guy? And then looking back and being like, damn, I was wrong as hell.
It's just the vibe. Yeah, it was a vibe check. that
Yeah,
you had a
for
different
sure.
outcome at the time for you.
Yeah, for sure. But it's also like, I know that my experience was a little different because I was like fairly ignorant to like a lot. I got into hip hop like later, like when I was like 13 or 14 was when I really got super into it. And I felt like without having that context of like growing up listening to this thing, like this genre, then like there wasn't like this cue of like, oh, this is kind of lame in certain parts, you know? And I think it's everybody's on a journey, and that's the way I try to look at it anyways. I hope that the people that are on that, like, man, fucking Logic and NF or whatever, I'm not trying to talk shit, but like, you know, like these people that I don't really listen to that are like known as like good, fast rappers or whatever, like that they're on that journey to be like, oh, maybe what the next thing is, the next evolution of that is like, oh, like, yeah, that was a phase I went through. You know what I mean? But,
I guess to me, what it is like, if it's like somebody where I will interject and engage with the conversation beyond it being like a subjective matter is when we're listening to something, you and I, and we fucking with it. The vibe is like, it's got like a cool vibe. It's got a nice flow, whatever. We just like, ooh, you know, and we don't even pay attention to the lyrics maybe, or maybe we kind of halfway pay attention. And then you're like, bro, what really makes this fucking song is like how good the punchlines are, you know? And then like I listen to it and I'm like, okay, there's punchlines here. The punchlines are mediocre. It's everything else that makes this song good in the first place. I feel like at that point, either you are, if someone's saying that to me, it's like either they're talking out of their ass and they know the song is good, but they don't know, they can't really, they don't have a discerning ear for it necessarily, and they're trying to figure out why they like it and they're pointing to the wrong thing, or they're dumb and just haven't heard better punchlines than that. And they're like, when I say dumb, like specifically ignorant to just like better writing on that specific front, you know? And that's when it's more to me than just a subjective take when I start to engage in a conversation like that, because to me, we're like, whether you fuck with a song or not, that's subjective. Whether you fuck with the vibe or not, that's subjective. But once you fuck with it and everything, and it's like what you might like from it can also still be subjective. Like you might like the voice, you might like how he pronounces certain things, or you might like something about the lyrics. Yeah. But if you point to
it's like the wrong thing,
right? But if you point to a thing that to me is like, this is like not the impressive part. You're like, it's almost kind of like, to me, it's like an initiated person watching someone's dance routine and being impressed by certain things that like a professional dance instructor will listen to you and be like, yeah, that is not at all. That's like the least impressive part of what they just did.
It's like the equivalent of like, well, let me just look at this to make sure. Okay, it's like the equivalent of like looking at the Mona Lisa and being like, man, he killed the background.
Yeah, well, you know, like,
you know what I mean? Like, oh man, like he's like so like this is so like, oh man, what carries the Mona Lisa is like, man, the environment is what everybody should focus on. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like the even if that is what you feel, like there is kind of like you know, but I do think though that more often than not, at least in my experience with what you're talking about, a lot of times people who are new to music or just want to have an opinion on something will just like get like, it's like people are afraid to just be like, I like this and I don't want to analyze why I like it. Like,
and that's fine.
Or maybe
also most people aren't equipped with the tools. Most of the things I like with like food, I don't necessarily know how it was made or prepared, or a lot of things that I enjoy mostly in my life and the kind of entertainment and media I consume. I wouldn't say necessarily I have a great deal of an understanding about that world or how things are produced at all. And I'm okay with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just kind of know what I know. I would not be like, okay, if if people had this much of an opinion about like the right moves in martial arts without actually knowing what martial art, like the right move in martial arts is supposed to look like, it would be so much more obvious of a conversation to be like, isn't that crazy that people are doing that? But people are essentially doing that. They just do that in areas where, because not everybody cares about martial arts. We don't really talk about it like that. But everyone, for the most part, likes music. In fact, that's so much the case that when we come across people who don't really listen to music, they're such a like outlier to our understanding. We always like, what? You don't? That's crazy. You know, we say that because it's so inherent in us. We love music. And so we all have opinions on things we love, obviously.
Some stronger than others, you know?
Some stronger than others. This is why also a lot of people have opinions on politics, even when oftentimes people are not really informed or really equipped to have that conversation. They just know that, like, hey, I'm speaking to social issues. I'm part of society. Like, that qualifies me by default to have a valid a take in the first place or whatever. So I think a lot of people just feel by default qualified to have takes on music that cannot be at all questioned by people who are like professionals. Like you and I have been doing this more than half our lives. You know, we've been doing this most of our lives. We not claiming to be experts in every part of everything that makes up music or the music industry, but why would we discard or dismiss the years of knowledge that we have picked up, you know, and our own experiences? And like, yes, sure, you could say a lot of it is anecdotal and whatnot, but like when it comes to like technical stuff and just sample pool, like the fact you and I probably listen to way more music than the average person, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, if none of that matters, if none of those parameters matter, then why the fuck does that kind of stuff matter? And literally every other like study or thing that we do in life.
There is like a weird thing with music opinions though, where it's like, it doesn't matter in a sense of like, if we never had this conversation, it won't make a difference for the most part. You know what I mean? Like I could have an opinion that like differs strongly with someone else. I'm also playing a devil's advocate here, by the way. I know what you're saying, but like, I think that there is kind of this thing where it's like, you can say like, hey, I disagree with this thing. And someone will just be like, okay. And then that's it. Like, that's the end of the conversation. Or like, that's the, like, there is this part of me that fears like when I talk with like a like normal music listener, a normie or whatever, like someone who like just like likes what they like and whatever. Whereas like, I'm going to like talk about it too much. And then they're just gonna be like, go outside. Do you know what I mean? Like there's this, like there is this feeling where I'm like, I'm a fucking nerd. You know what I mean? And maybe they're just not a nerd.
But that's and that's fine. And I think that that's like part of us doing what we do. It's part of the outcomes. Is like we become nerds of this stuff because maybe like we were born to be nerds for that kind of stuff. That's what gravitated us towards it in the first place. Yeah. Maybe not. But one thing for sure is we've spent the most like time and experience points have been allotted to this area.
For sure.
And it doesn't mean we've necessarily, by default, because we've been in this industry, we've made the right decisions. But I feel like we do have some credibility given that like we have records that and like things that we can point to and the people that we collaborate with in this industry. To kind of qualify the validity or value of our opinions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just like in any other thing, you would. It's just music is a lot more. Music it cannot be taught the same way that philosophy. You know, people, they're both belong in the arts, right?
Yeah.
But they couldn't be further from one another. Philosophy to me is more like history in a sense. It's like the application of like our understanding of like how we got to where we are and how to like take it further. I don't think in music, your understanding of the history of music is that important. You and I are informed on it. I'm also just like a huge hip hop history nerd. So I'm super informed on it. But I think it has nothing to do with how good or not good my music is. Or could be.
Yeah, no. I think that's the one thing that there's plenty, and I will say this, okay? There's plenty of people that I know or that I look up to musically that like have atrocious music takes, like all the time. Yeah. And I'll see it on Twitter and I'll be like, well, this person's incredibly dope, but I just do not see how I would ever agree with what they just said. Yeah. You know? Yeah, and I think that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. That's the one thing that I remember. There's so many instances of me saying I didn't like a rapper when I was younger and I was like more vocal about shit I didn't like. And then people would be like, well, what do you fucking know? You know? And I'd be like, nothing other than like I but like see, what with I
rappers,
like.
The thing is, the difference is like when rappers do that, I pay attention to who says what, first of all, right? And when they do say it and I don't hear it and I like go in, I give them good faith and I don't hear it, I just assume that it's politics. And you know that it's true. And it happens all the times. And I oftentimes assume that one of the two people in this situation, possibly both, are narcissists. And it's just a narcissistic like code to operate in certain ways and like build relationships with certain people based on your foresight rather than based on your true feelings about their art. Because that's something that's new to me over the last few years to have like truly considered. But that's something, of course, that makes sense that it exists out there. You know, people are trying to read the room, and people are all essentially acting as like little predictors of the future, you know, and are trying to hedge their bets on certain relationships oftentimes. And so I don't look to rappers for that. I don't look to their pages and things like that. More so when I like sit down and have conversations. I've definitely had conversations back and forth with like Open Mike Eagle, for example, where I'm like, yo, this shit sucks. And he's like, nah, it's incredible. And I'm like, what's incredible about it, you know? And then when he breaks it down for me, I'm like, I get it.
I do appreciate
like I get
those
where it
kinds
comes
of,
from, you know? Like
I do appreciate those kinds of insights sometimes because like sometimes there'll be some stuff. Do you ever have this where like you'll hear something and then you'll be like, I just don't get it, or like I don't see why people like it, and then when someone breaks it down for you, you look at it in a different, like the context changes everything just a little bit.
For sure.
Like enough. Yeah. I feel like that's
or at least like it can help me understand. It doesn't change that I still don't like it. Sometimes it can, but most of the time I've noticed like, I'm like, oh, like if it takes me so many steps to get to a point where I understand why people like it means like I'm not going to necessarily immediately gravitate towards it naturally in my own personal life. And it's fine. There's plenty enough stuff out there that makes me feel good without me having to walk a labyrinth to arrive. Yeah. Like I will only walk a labyrinth if the shit that I'm getting at the end of it is like so good and that it was worth the labyrinth. Yeah. That I can't get it anywhere else, you know?
For sure. Here's a question. I know we're probably running close to the end of time.
Yeah, we should probably start wrapping it up.
But I did want to ask a question. I've been waiting to ask it. We've been talking about like good takes in music and stuff like that. Do you have any and it's cool if you don't want to share them. Do you think you have any bad takes in music? Like a thing that perhaps a hot take, perhaps a thing that you go like, oh, I understand like people are gonna throw stones at me if I say this out loud.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Yes. And before I think of one, I would like to just preface this with my interpretation of what a hot take is: an admission of a bad opinion. And so I'm trying to approach this in like the most humble way. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever I'm about to say, I acknowledge that it's like I'm not getting it, you know?
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Mine's egregious. So
Yours egregious?
just letting you know. Yeah, but it's far enough removed that most people wouldn't give a fuck about it. There's gonna be one person in the chat, probably, or in the chat. Wow, I've been streaming too much. One person in the comments is gonna be like, "Wow, Bill's take on this is dumb as hell." But I think most people won't give a fuck.
I don't like net spend.
Oh no, they're gonna come for you, dude. They're gonna come for you.
I don't know nothing about net spend. Could be a great kid or adult even. I don't know. All I know is that I genuinely don't know. All I know is that like I listen to it, I'm like, damn, I can tell that I'm not the target audience because it's flying over my head. Whatever like is making some of the kids go like, yes, this is like I read through comments and I don't usually see people really breaking down what makes it tick for them necessarily, or if they are, I'm like, I'm not really getting it. So, and I have tons of artists like that. He's not like the only one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I will say this about Netspend. I don't like dislike what I hear, if that makes any sense. It's like sometimes I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Like I don't see why people are like freaking out about Netspend. But I will say this, Netspend is probably, I'm like into weird rap. I'm into like kind of like, oh, this is a little scuffed, but like there's like joy to be found in this rap music and stuff like that. Like with Netspend, he's like the first dude to actually make me feel old while I listen to music. Like I'll hear like sometimes it'll be like, oh yeah, I can see why people like it, and like, but it's not for me, and maybe because I'm older I don't like that. But it's like this is the one where when I hear Netspend and I see people talk about Netspend, I'm confused actually, because it'll be some stuff that I'll be like, okay, I'm hearing it, the beat is cool, but it's not really registering a note in my head that makes me feel a thing. Does that make any sense? It's not that I don't like it or that I don't like it more than other things. Or,
to me, that's what makes me not.
I straight up don't get it. That's it. Yeah.
To me, it's like I would prefer it wasn't on. You know, like when it's on, I'm like I would prefer something else. Like usually with a lot of music, I'm just like whatever. Like I don't give a fuck. But with that stuff, I'm just like, oh, like I'm clearly missing the thing. And I think it's okay. I think I will catch on. Maybe way too late. But I think like a lot of these things take time to process because my reference points are like grounded or rooted in in something that isn't as directly linked to the thought processes that create the music that I'm hearing now. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm becoming more and more far removed from like what the youth are feeling or experiencing as time moves on and the world starts to change around them. They start to have a more vastly different experience as kids than me. You know what I mean? And they're living always in a different world that's already experienced a lot of things that I went through. So they're arriving at their conclusions, like understandably. You know what I mean? So I think there will always be a level of that. I just want to at least have, and I will read into it. I'm sure there's someone who breaks it down. I just want to, even if I don't fully like agree or like it might not work for me, let's say, I want to understand what it means for the people that are moved by it, especially if it's like really huge numbers of people. Because I think there is a benefit to understanding how people arrive at certain conclusions, especially when there's like such high numbers of people. And I think a refusal to do so is what leads to certain older people becoming like the older like archetype that we make fun of, who's just like out of touch. I think there's a way to be in touch without being like, hello, fellow kids, I think it's
for
just
sure,
like being
for sure.
informed, just like not like dismissing it as something. Because I feel like if you're not informed, then you're dismissing the value and significance of that. And to me, as someone who's really into like politics and social issues, I know that art is a mirror of how people are feeling and what's actually going on. And so to me, there is huge value in being in touch with it and trying to understand it. Even if you don't always like it, it is very informative of the vibes,
Facts.
of the conditions.
For sure. I feel like that it's almost like a FOMO where I'm like, I feel like I not knowing what is the thing that makes it click for people. I feel like I'm on the outside of this thing. Like, where do the metrics lie? Is it just vibes? Is that it? Like, am I just like not passing the vibe check? You know what I mean? Like, right. Is it, what is the thing? But I will say, I have one that probably most people won't give a fuck about, but it is a very hot take that I've actually given a lot of thought into, right? I like how the drums are mixed on Saint Anger by Metallica. And a lot of people really, 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 really don't like how particularly the snare is mixed on that. It's like a running.
Mix that one, or who mixed that?
No, it was Bob Rock, the same dude who did the Black Album for them. But yeah, no, not the Black Album for Jay-Z. Was that Rick Rubin? That was Rick Rubin, right?
I don't know. I think he just did 99 Problems.
Well, he was there anyway. He's somehow adjacent. Anyway, a lot of people. One of the things that they did was, like on a snare, like how it has the thing on the bottom that makes something sound like a snare. That's disengaged, and so it just sounds like he's banging on like a trash can the whole time. And a lot of people really, really don't like that song or that sound. But so for anybody in here who wants smoke with me,
but that's just
over...
that's a subjective thing, like especially because you recognize the how it was made or not made, or that it was like I mean, when it like whether you like it or not, that's just a subject. You're not saying like objectively that is the best snare of all time, and that's what makes that song so good is the snare.
Well, yeah, it's the whole album is like that, but yeah, like it's I think you're right, but I will say that people people have made versions of this album where they like replace the snare. It's literally it just Saint Anger snares fixed, like it's on YouTube.
Crazy.
And if you listen to it, you probably would. I don't know how you would feel about it because it feels like a weird kind of like artsy decision for them to do. There's a reason why I feel that way. It's because it makes it feel like very disconnected and weird. And it's a fucking weird ass album. Like it's one of my tisms is like I'm obsessed with like the strange things that went into this album. And so I think that context does make it a little cooler, but a lot of people like heard the snare and were like, damn, like off rip. And like when I was a kid, I was like, this shit sounds kind of cool. Like they're in a fucking like rail yard just hitting on shit, you know? But if I were to tweet about it, I'm sure that 4 people exactly would be very upset with my opinion on that. So,
well,
yeah, you
might be right. Bill, we have a Patreon.
Whoa, that's right. Hold on. I'm just getting on my headset here. I'm getting. Oh, what's that? We have 2 tiers on our Patreon: a $5 tier and a $20 tier.
2 tiers,
that's right.
Like a double homicide prisoner, but after he was in prison, like after killing 2 people in prison and then getting 2-tier tattoo. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, man. So 2 tiers. The first tier, $5. What do you get? Well, I'm about to fucking tell you, okay? Where you see this episode that's out right now that you're watching right now that you begrudgingly decided to get to this point
or listening to,
or listening to, or you're left it on in the background. You're halfway paying attention to what I'm saying right now while you're like taking a shower and it's not loud enough playing over your phone, but it's enough to where it kind of feels like someone's in the room with you. Anyway, yeah, dude, this episode, well, what if I were to tell you there was another episode, a hidden episode that's behind the paywall for $5?
Huh?
Also, there's some other bullshit on there, behind the scenes stuff. There's also like fucking, I put a beat tape out. There was like a whole bunch of old beats on there and mashups and stuff a long time ago, but I'll do more. And all the like Snow Globe Theory beats that didn't make it and stuff from around that time period. And then Mitch is there probably. And you got pictures of me and I look questionable because you put a bunch of face filters pictures on me. And that's a whole bunch of stuff, and that could all be for yours. All be yours for only $5. That's right. And what's that? Oh, I'm getting another transmission here on my headset. $20, 20 big old fucking Washingtons. That's right. You could spend $20 and then you could get we have like an advice hour we do once every 2 weeks or something. And then also like we're going to play games with you guys and in the Discord and a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not doing a very good job, but just trust me, it's fucking cool and worth it. And yeah, you should definitely, like, if you're thinking about, man, I would love to go buy some groceries at the store. Just don't do that, and instead give us $20.
Soon enough, there won't be any groceries to buy.
Damn, dude. That's why you look good, man.
I have a vegetable farm. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been fun.
Sexy.
I guess. Huh?
What?
Oh, we forgot to say you're now tuning into Void FM. So, Mitch, I'm about to say it. Edited it earlier. Bill, I just need you to pretend we're nice and early on in the podcast.
Okay. Whoa, it's so early.
It's been a minute since I've seen you. Yeah, you're looking good.
Yeah, man. It's just definitely not recorded after because we forgot to say it.
The following is a preview of this week's Patreon exclusive episode. Available now over on the Void FM podcast Patreon.
I think it's time we play a little bit of Supermarket Simulator. I'm gonna threaten them into buying.
Submission.
Sir, you look like you need some milk or some eggs. You look like you need some water. It's cold. What? Hey, Mr.
Hey, yo,
Oily.
okay, watch out for this guy. He looks too cool. You're not the most likable guy, admittedly, right? You're the first to say that.